Hi, this is John Wakefield, former geologist and subsequently owner of Artistry In Glass in Tucson for 38 years. We're currently traveling the great USA with my wife Claire in our little truck camper, which we call Diogenes. Now, you can tell right away from my accent that I was not born in Tucson. I'm not one of that proud group who attended Tucson High School and who remembers when Speedway Boulevard was a dirt road. But I have been here for quite a while. In fact, I arrived in the early 1980s, coincidentally about the same time that Lute Olson showed up to resurrect a floundering basketball team. The Wildcats had just suffered their worst ever season, going 1-17 in Pac-10 play under Ben Lindsay. So I've seen Arizona rise from the ashes. I've experienced the 40-year roller coaster ride, the highs and lows of Wildcat basketball, and I feel qualified to give a kind of outsider's inside look at the greatest time of year in Tucson. I'm talking about springtime when the Sonoran Desert is beautiful and the saguaros are in bloom, and Tucson is afflicted by physical and mental health challenges, the twin maladies of Wildcat Fever and March Madness. Now, just a little disclaimer, this video is for news, educational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not affiliated with or sponsored by or endorsed by the University of Arizona, the NCCAA, or any of their respective affiliates. All trademarks, logos, and brand names are the property of their respective owners and are used here under fair use for the purpose of commentary and criticism. Now, March in Tucson is when the collective health, wealth, and mental stability of an entire city hinges on the performance of a small group of student athletes on a hardwood floor. Some call it the NCAA tournament, but for those of us living in the shadow of the Santa Catalina Mountains, it's a seasonal epidemic. Wildcat fever is a highly contagious pathogen that was incubated in the late 80s behind the sharp shooting of Steve Kerr and Tucson's own Choya High School graduate, Sean Elliott. It reached peak virulence in 1997 when Mike Bibby and Miles Simon cut down the nets at the RCO Dome in Indianapolis. The Wildcats became the only team to beat 3 #1 seeds on their way to a national title. Transmission of Wildcat fever is by airborne circulation on radio, ESPN, social media, and by physical distribution of branded merchandise. Once the virus enters the bloodstream, the prognosis is lifelong glorious delirium. Condition is vaccine and antibiotic resistant. Patients may experience remission, but the fever never truly leaves your system. It lies dormant throughout the year until Selection Sunday in March. Symptoms include buzzer beater heart palpitations, bracketology brain fog, and an unswerving allegiance to the red and blue. Now, Wildcat fever is just a component of a wider psychiatric syndrome, occasionally referred to as big dance delirium, but best known as March Madness. This isn't a single illness, it's a cluster of mental disorders that cause productivity to slump, traffic to disappear, and an entire city to fall silent. Psychiatrists divide March Madness into several conditions, which include seasonal dissociative disorder, a state in which jobs, laundry, and income tax cease to feel real, but attention is restricted to the 94 feet of a basketball court and to a freshman's free throw percentage. Anticipatory traumatic stress, a chronic anxiety triggered by the memory of early round disasters. Patients often suffer nightmare flashbacks and may mutter Princeton or Santa Clara in hushed tones and refuse to ever trust a double-digit seed again. Advantage relinquishment syndrome, originating on March 5, 2005, when Arizona held a 15-point lead over Illinois with 4 minutes left. Despite having Channing Frye and Salim Stoudemire on the team, they lost 90-89 in overtime. Patients remember where they were as the Wildcats snatched defeat from the jaws of victory and may whisper, "We were up 15," at random intervals for the rest of their lives. Coach K paranoia. This is certified after the agonizing 2001 national title loss to Duke. This historic phobia centered on the belief that the Wildcats, even with Gilbert Arenas and Richard Jefferson, would always be out-strategized by Duke's Mike Krzyzewski. Superstition syndrome is the belief that your behavior, where you sit or what you wear, directly influences a ball bouncing 2,000 miles or more away. Manifestations include wearing an unwashed lucky t-shirt, refusing to leave the room during a second-half run, sitting on your favorite stool at gentle bends, and the famous Brian Jeffries protocol, the sacred ritual of syncing the TV image with the radio call. If the audio runs 3 seconds ahead, you must sit in silence and accept the spoiler as a holy preview of joy. Now, the malign influence of March Madness extends far beyond the court, placing a brutal strain on domestic life across Tucson. This friction inevitably ignites marital meltdown, a psychological siege where one family member is held hostage by relentless bracket and tactic obsession, while the other, driven to the brink of insanity, finally snaps under the weight of the absurdity, shouting things like, "Don't you understand? It's only a game." Now, it's not just long-suffering spouses who enjoy torture during March Madness. Think of the entrepreneurial community. They become victims of compulsory inventory reduction, a condition known as Markdown Misery. As you see the team advances, the number of vendors increases exponentially. Merchants fill every intersection, finessing razor-thin margins of time. These silkscreeners have only 48 hours to print thousands of t-shirts on pure speculation. The team loses. The streets are haunted by merchants staring at crates of thwarted hopes. Boxes of national champion garments are destined for the $2 clearance bin. Mountains of cotton representing busted brackets and unfulfilled dreams. So the question becomes, is all this drama and uncertainty worth the effort? Look at it this way, there's really only 2 outcomes, they win or they lose. Well, I suppose the final 4 is a kind of victory, but to win everything is very unlikely, a very slim chance, which, if it happens, results in the whole of Tucson exploding in synchronized euphoria. In that moment, those teenagers on the hardwood aren't just athletes, they are the healers of a city, turning a month of anxiety into a lifetime of legend. A 7'2" giant from Eastern Europe becomes a folk hero. Parades and fireworks disturb our sleepy desert oasis. Civil disorder breaks out as University Boulevard becomes a sea of red and blue. Bottles are smashed on Main Gate Square. Fans climb light poles and dance on the rooftops. But statistics are cruel. There is always the ominous premonition of impending defeat. Sometimes it's the start that's inauspicious, reverberating plunk when the first 3-point attempts rebound from the back of the rim. You don't know what the problem is. Maybe you're sitting in the wrong bar stool. Maybe you're not wearing your lucky t-shirt, but you somehow feel a premonition that the stars are not correctly aligned for victory. The same premonition occurred to alert basketball fans who witnessed the on-court interview with Utah Utes coach Rick Majerus in 1998.
Before the game, you were contemplating something very dramatic. Are you going to do it? What is it?
I don't know about dramatic. I mean, we got to take Bibby out of the game, so we're going to try to pay some special attention to him and maybe put a box of 1, a little triangle, and 2 on him and see how that reacts. I don't know if it's dramatic. We've gotten here.
The result, Utah won 76-51. It wasn't a loss, it was a throttling. The game was so lopsided that the final 10 minutes felt like a funeral for the Wildcats' repeat hopes. In the dark night of sad, devastating defeats like these, we join the fraternity of losers. Like the long-suffering Buffalo Bills, remember those 4 straight Super Bowl losses? Finding consolation only in Nietzsche that defeat is character building, and possibly in the words of Bill Walton, who frequently treated McHale Center like a cathedral, and reminded us that this isn't just a game, it's a celebration of life. When the wheels inevitably fall off, we should listen for the echo of his voice telling us to look past the scoreboard and towards the Santa Catalina Mountains. He taught us that even in the first-round exit, we are witnessing the greatness of the human spirit and the magnificence of the desert sun. The madness may be a disease, but as Walton would surely remind us, between Ode to the Grateful Dead, it's a beautiful way to be alive. He was right. In Tucson, the fever isn't the problem, it's the point. We wear the lucky shirt, we ignore the taxes, we believe, and every March we're willing to catch it all over again. Tucson teaches us that some things are worth watching every year. So if you want to learn more about our travels, follow the links in the description. I'm currently on a mission to reach 500 subscribers, so if you enjoyed this, I'd be honored to have you join the journey. Thank you for watching.